You can use anything, Lord. You can use me.
Mistake? No. Unique by design. How have you been? Have you been flowing? Every woman, every man has got a story to tell. And today I'm going to tell mine. Like I said last time, what we are talking about, are we a mistake? Is a person a mistake? Is your character a mistake? Or you are unique by design? I'll start my story from the beginning. When my mother gave birth to me, so I'm told, she fell sick. She was very sick that they discharged me and she was left in hospital. And everyone was shaken by that. And I've got a vernacular name which means we've been shaken. So from the moment I came in, there was a shaking. Although I was told, but I didn't embrace it. So growing up in my mother's house, it was understood. It was something that everyone knew, that Sunday, everyone goes to church. Whether you like it, you enjoy it. My mother used to lock a door. She would lock a door and you go to church. So I used to go to church. So when I get to church, we call them benches. Some call them pews. I would make sure that my mom, I'm 4 pews or 4 benches away from my mom, right behind her, so that she doesn't see me. Because I wanted to sleep. I grew up those days where kids were only seen, not heard. I grew up there when your mother looks at you, you know exactly what it meant. So I decided I don't want no eyes talking to me in church. So I used to sit right behind her and go to sleep. But then there used to be Bible reading, whatever the reading for the day, I would understand, I would hear it and memorize it in my hand. But it's not like it was doing anything to me. It was something that I do. I'm at a place, so let's do what's going on in that place. So when I grew up, girls never used to leave the gate. It was known that girls don't leave the gate. The boys can leave the gate, but by 5, 6, they should be home. So whenever you wanted to go somewhere, you don't go. If you are a lady, you don't go. So what I used to do is that when I see that my brothers are out, I would hide some tomatoes or whatever that is needed to cook so that I can go to the shops. That's the only way you go to the shops, because the boys are not there and because it's urgent. So that's how I used to go. Fast forward, there was an opportunity for me to go to camp. So I went to camp at Rest Haven when it was just, they were still building it. I went to camp not because I loved Jesus. No. I went to camp because that was the only time I could leave the gate and go away without questions. So I went to camp. Got to camp. I'm talking about, I'm not a mistake. I'm unique by design. So I went to camp. When I went to camp the first night, it went on well. The second night, it was a husband and wife tech team. They were ministering. So when the service was coming to an end, they did an altar call. And the altar call, they said, there are people here who wanted to commit suicide. I've never wanted to commit suicide. I thought I was bigger than life. I enjoyed my life. I liked me. I've never had problems with me. But I found myself on the line, on the altar call line. And when they were praying, they started praying for people. They jumped me and they prayed for others. As they jumped me, I was thinking to myself, I don't know how I'm here. I don't want to commit. I've never wanted to commit suicide. I don't know why I'm here. So I wanted to leave the prayer line. But as I tried to leave the prayer line, my legs could not move. So I stayed there. I thought, let me just wait and see what happens. So when they came back to me, I'll tell you there were 2 or 3 things. I always thought that when people pray for people, they push them, number 1. Number 2, I never believed in this born again thing. I never believed in it. I was going to church, go to church and be a good person. That's it. And I never believed in speaking in tongues or heavenly language. I never believed that. I used to say that whenever someone is talking in tongues, I must hear them in my own language because that's what the Bible said. So that was my story and I was sticking to it. So on that day when I was there, when they came to pray for me, my legs went up first and I lay flat like this and I went down. I felt the power of God over my life. I went down. I remember one of the ushers afterwards, he came and said, sorry, the way you fell, we couldn't hold you. I hope you're not hurt. And I said, you didn't catch me? I didn't even realize they didn't catch me. I went down. And that morning, I woke up with sores in my mouth. But as I hit the floor, the sores went out. I was healed, instantly healed. So I felt the power of God and I felt the healing. And from that time when I left the camp, I was on fire for God. I wanted to know more about Him. I wanted to know more about Jesus. I remember I had friends from camp and I was talking to them and they were telling me that now you need to be baptized in the Holy Spirit, and they were talking to me about it. And that week, they were teaching me about the Holy Spirit, and I was waiting for Sunday so that I can get baptized in the Holy Spirit. But I was in the lounge all by myself. Something happened to me and I was baptized in the Holy Ghost, and I began to speak in other tongues. No man laid hands on me. It just happened. And I began to enjoy that. So what then, after that, I began to serve. I got involved in ministry, excited about serving. Went to Bible school in 1992. I went to Bible school. I went to Bible school not because I wanted to be a pastor. No. I wanted to know more about this Jesus. I wanted to know more about God. And I also, the other thing is, I had attended a graduation and they were looking so good, and I thought, oh, that would be good if I wear those robes and the cap. That's why I went to Bible school. But this Bible school, it was so organized that I learned to be organized. They said if 3 absent, you are out. And 15 minutes is an absent. So I learned to be meticulous. I learned to be on time. I learned to be punctual. I learned to be organized. So that was me. So when I left Bible school, even in ministries, I served, always wanted things to be organized. To a fault. Sometimes people didn't understand that because I wanted everything to be in its right place. That's me. And to me, I was doing good. I was in the hostess, I was hostessing, and whenever I went to ministry, I would make sure that things are in order. For me, I was enjoying that. But God had other things in store for me. I had prophecies that I got. I remember a pastor called me once and he says, you, come here. And I came. And he said, you think you are too much? He says, yes, you are too much. But you are good too much. Whatever that meant, I went and sat down. And I remember the other time he called me, he says, in your bosom, there are many lives. Lives depend on you. There are so many lives in your bosom. You can't draw back. You can't draw back because lives depend on you. didn't know what it was about. I think he saw something in me that I didn't see. Because to me, I was serving, I was doing okay. Everything was okay. So I think there was a frustration in him because he could see something. Maybe he thought I could see it as well, but to me, I was okay. So he called me and says, it's time, it's time. I think he said it about 12 times. It's time, it's time, it's time. I didn't know what time it was. For what? And I thought, I'll just listen and go back and sit down. And the other prophecy was, I was called up and says, come here. And I went. And he says, preacher woman with a big Bible. I see you ministering to lots and lots of women and a few men. And I looked where I was really, and I thought, no way. There were people who were ministering. There were people who could minister. There were people who could fit in the mold to be ministers, and not me. I was supposed to sweep, make sure the decor is right, make sure everything is right, so that they can minister. So I just listened to it, and I left it like that. 2013, I went back to Rest Haven, the same place where I went to camp. That was 26 years later. And when I went there in the service, I was like weeping throughout the service. The Father was doing something in me. I don't remember what the sermon was, but I remember I wept throughout the service. Then after that, the mother called me to her house. She says God has spoken to her, and she wanted to tell me what God had said. Well, I went there, and she says, God says he wants to use me. And I thought, but I'm being used. I mean, from 1986, I've been used. I've been in ministry. How else would God want to use me? But I listened, and he says, take time in prayer. I took time in prayer. Come 2014, we had a ladies' conference where I was heavily involved, and I was enjoying myself in ministry. So I was the first speaker for the day. I remember I was the first speaker for the day, and I spoke. After I spoke, I went to sit down. I'm cutting a long story short. I went to sit down. When I went to sit down, the mother got up and she said, young lady, go back where you were. You know, like where I was ministering. And I thought, I've done something wrong. When I got there, she then said, God said to her, rise up, my pastor. Rise up, my pastor. And as soon as she said that, the other sister from the other side, like started crying. And she said to my other sister, tell them what I said. And the mother said, what did you say? She says, when Judy got up, when she was ministering, God says to me, Judy must be ordained a pastor. But like I told you, I was not a pastor material. I didn't fit in the mold of a pastor. And even when my sister was told that, she didn't understand it, because no, I was not your usual. I was the runaround girl who fixes everything, not a pastor. So she just looked, so she says, and God says she should be ordained. So says, so why didn't you say it? So is it ordination? Long story short, it turned out to be an ordination, and I was ordained to become a pastor. And when I was ordained to become a pastor, from there I started going missions. I thought, this is it. Mission, this ministry, going to mission. I could not sit down. I was just going everywhere as mission. So one day I had some guests from outside the country that I was hosting. So when they came, I was hosting one gentleman. And that gentleman, he had gone to sleep, and I'd also gone to retire. I remember him sending my daughter to come and call me. And I went there. He says he's got an urgent message for me. And I was thinking, what urgent message? Then he says, I saw you ministering. And I looked at him, I said, I do minister already? He says, no, I saw you ministering, but I saw you with a logo with your name on it, ministering. I just looked at him and I said, okay, I've heard you. And I went and I sat down. So during the COVID period, everyone was indoors. I was doing my morning walks, and the Father began to unpack these things to me. You're going to hear me refer to him as my Father, because he revealed to me as my Father. He revealed to me as a Father. Your God, my Father. And I just started going through Apostle Paul's letters. Apostle Paul says, an apostle not by men, but by God. And that's my story. I'm a pastor not by men, but ordained by God. And God, there was a time when I was frustrated and I did ask God what he wanted from me. I said, what do you want from me? And he said, I want your body. And I said, what do you mean you want my body? He says, I want you to come out, and I'll come in. As he said that, as I'm sitting here, I saw myself sitting here. I was sitting here, but I could see myself there. I saw myself coming out of myself. My name, everything. And I carried out like how long people used to carry things on their shoulders. I carried everything about me and I came out. And I saw the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords come in and make his abode in me. And I quickly thought I knew what it meant. And I thought, whenever I'm ministering, I should let him minister. So as always when I ministered, I would say, Lord, you can use my hands, you can use my feet, you can use my mouth, but minister to you. And surely he would do that. But that's what I thought. But during this time, he began to unpack it for me. He began to say, no. I want to be an outflow coming from you. I want to permanently be an outflow coming from you. And he began to tell me about outflow. And I saw it, and it became outflow with Pastor Judy. It was where he was telling me that we are crucified with Christ. It's no longer us that lives, but Christ in us. And he says, when we believe, out of our bellies shall flow rivers of living water. And he began to unpack so many sermons, so many things that he'd been unpacking for me. And I realized that it was time I come in front of a camera and begin to talk. So I began to embrace who I am. I began to embrace the way I don't fit in. It was by design, for a reason, and for a purpose. So there are times when we think our character or whatever is happening to us is a mistake. But no, the Father does not make a mistake. But it's all been ordained before the foundation of the earth. So I embrace myself. I embrace my personality. I embrace everything that I've learned. And all I know is Christ in me is the hope of glory. And Christ is the only supernatural outflow that comes out of me. So I realize that Christ, I don't have any other life. I don't have a life because I'm crucified with Christ. The only life that I have is Christ's life. It's Christ, him, living through me. So I am not trying to be like Christ. No, but I'm allowing Christ to live through me as outflow. So this is the story of my life. I'm not here because I wanted to, or it's something that I've always wanted to. No, but it was ordained by my Father, because my Father wants to speak through me as an outflow. outflow and minister to his people. So I embrace who I am. That's my story in a nutshell. I'm not your usual girl. I'm not your usual pastor. And whatever the Father will have us to do, he will do it, because he told me that he wants my body. He says everything he has. What he doesn't have is a body. So he wants me to avail his body. And he will live through me. So we're going to have an exciting, interesting time where the Father will do whatever he wants, and he is the supernatural outflow coming from my belly to achieve each and everything that we have asked to do. Until next time, keep flowing and let the outflow keep going. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Until next time, flow.
You can use anything, Jesus. You can use anything, Lord. You can use me. I'm willing to be used. Yes, I am. Take my hand and my feet, touch my heart.